Boker Tov, good morning, Rechavia Nachlaot in Yerushalayim, and to everyone that's listening to us and watching. This morning, Tuesday morning at 9:30, we are going to start a new paragraph in the special Maamar of VeYadaata Hayom from Tafresh Nun Zayin, 1896. Before we begin, I just want to mention that tonight we're going to have a special lecture with Rabbi Aaron Schmidt on the subject of Shlom Bayit, respecting your spouse and yourself. He's a marriage counselor and the editor of the popular weekly Jewish newsletter that comes out before Shabbat. And so you can tune in tonight before 7:30. We're going to start at 7:30 Bezrat Hashem, Tuesday night, from wherever you are around the world, on the same information of Facebook and in our Zoom room right here. Up until now, we've been learning about the Zohar. The Zohar said that Havaya ve'Elokim kul achad. The name of Havaya, the name of Hashem, Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, and Elokim with a Hey, are kul achad, is all one and the same thing. So in the beginning, the Rebbe Rashab asked that it doesn't seem to sound right that Havaya, which is the concept of giving light, shining light, and Elokim, which is restraining, that both of these are the same thing. They seem to be two opposites. And he explained that when you look at Havaya and Elokim the way it is over here, then it may seem opposites. But when you look at Havaya Elokim in the source is definitely Havaya and Elokim. They're both the koach, the energy of Hashem to give, and the energy of Hashem to restrain are both the same, are pretty much both the same concept. And therefore, they really are one. At the end of the day, we really need to explain, the Rebbe Rashab is going to explain now, we need to explain that at the end of the day, that Shem Elokim means restraint. So maybe with the way you look at it in the source, Havaya and Elokim are all one, but Havaya and Elokim, that's only in the koach, but the way it comes out, they seem to be two opposites. We're saying basically Elokim is not ma'alim, does not cover over, does not withhold or withdraw. It seemingly does. So before we start learning inside the Maamar, I just want to give you, let's first read the question, then I'll give you my short introduction. Ulahavin biur hadvarim hanal, and to understand the explanation of what we've mentioned earlier, seemingly it's not understood. V'halo kol inyan shem Elokim hu litzamtzem ulahalim. Seemingly the entire concept of Shem Elokim is to condense and to cover over. Ve'ech nomar she'eino ma'alim klal. So how can we say that Shem Elokim does not cover over at all? Ve'ech efshar liyot shneim. How could we have both? Shema'alim ve'eino ma'alim. That it does cover over and it doesn't cover over at the same time. As a short introduction to what we're going to learn now, I'm going to introduce a new concept in Kabbalah. 3 words, very simple and straightforward words. Mati ve'eino mati. It reaches, but doesn't reach. In other words, we have sometimes a concept that you have two opposites in the same idea. And I'll give a couple of explanations. Let's say you are very tall and you want to touch the ceiling. So you're stretching your hand up high, really, really high. So Mati, you want to reach, but barely 2 centimeters or a half a centimeter from the top. You barely touch and then your finger goes down. your tallest finger. And you're on your tippy toes. You're trying really hard to reach up high. So on one hand, you're reaching, and simultaneously, you're not reaching because you're not really tall enough to touch the ceiling. So you have two opposite characteristics within the same idea, within the same concept, at the same moment. Or let's say, for example, you're pushing a carriage with a baby down the hill. So you're pushing, and you're going. You're advancing. You're going more and more. But you're also at the same time you're holding back. You don't want it, God forbid, to go rolling down the hill. So you're holding it back that it should be in control. So you tell me, what are you doing? Are you pushing or are you holding back? You're right. You're doing both. You're both pushing the stroller and you're also withdrawing. So sometimes we have this concept of mati ve'eno mati. You reach, you try hard to get there, but at the same time, eino mati. At the same time, you're not really reaching because you're withdrawing, you're withholding. And this is what the Rebbe Rashab is going to explain in great detail. And it's this paragraph which makes, in my humble opinion, makes the Rebbe Rashab so unique. He takes a concept which in essence he alluded to earlier, and now he's going to break it down into really basic, straightforward words. And this is very special to me because this Shabbat, this coming Shabbat, Chaf Cheshvan, the 20th of Cheshvan, is the Rebbe Rashab's birthday. So this week leading up to the Rebbe Rashab's birthday, it's very appropriate to learn his Maamar, especially this point, which brings out his uniqueness of being able to take a deep concept and to explain it really, really in great detail and at great length. So now we're going to start to learn inside the text. And if you don't have the text, just listen along. Hopefully everything will be clear. Bezrat Hashem. However, the idea will be understood al derech mashal, like with an analogy. B'nefesh ha'adam, in the soul of man. Dihine anu roim, for we see clearly b'mashpia umekabel, with someone that gives, teaches, that's mashpia, and mekabel, someone that receives. Kisha mekabel rachok erko mehamashpia, when the receiver has a far distance from the giver. Kmo chacham gadol, for example, a wise person, shetzarich lahashpia sechel, that he has to deliver a concept, an intellectual concept, l'mekabel katan b'sechel, to someone who is receiving, who has maybe small brains, shelo be'erach hamashpia, which is incomparable to the one who's giving over. So, for example, if you have Einstein, which is trying to explain to a 5-year-old child a very deep concept that he just figured out. Hine behechrech, we must say, shahamashpia yitzamtzem. We must say that he who is delivering will need to condense the yalim and should cover over etzem sichlo v'chochmato, the essence of his wisdom and his understanding, sheyesh ba'davara muskalahu, which is in that specific concept, v'lo yigalelo rak masha be'erko, and he will not reveal to him only what's in his what the child in our example should be able to receive. She'im yigalelo, for if the Chacham Gadol, the great wise person, will reveal Omek veRochav Chochmato Badavar Muskal, for if the wise person will reveal the depth and the breadth of his wisdom in that intellectual idea, Kamo Shehu Etzlo, as it is by him, then Yitbalbalu Chushei Mekabel. Then the talent of the receiver will be all confused. V'lo yuchal lekabel klal, will not be able to receive at all. It will just be overwhelmed by the intensity of the wisdom of the great chacham, the wise person. Ki'im be'echrech. So what does the wise person have to do? Sheyitzamtzem v'yalim kol omek v'rochav chochmato b'zeh. He needs to totally withhold, contain within himself the essence and the depth of his wisdom. V'lo yigalelo, and he will not reveal to him ki'im he'ara chitzoniyut me'adavar muskal. He'll only reveal to the child an external glimpse, a very, very external shine from this intellectual concept. Bekitzer nimratz, very, very short. Lefi erech hamkabel, according to the ability for the receiver to be able to receive. V'af gam zot, and even that, malbish u'ma'alim, he'll have to enclose and cover over b'mashal, with an analogy. Shahamashal hu davar zar legamri mehanimshal. For the analogy, the parable is something totally strange from the analogy. V'harehu mechaseh u'ma'alim ala sechel. When you give someone an example, a good example is totally unrelated to the analogy, but because it's so similar to the analogy, then it's able to cover over the essence of the intellectual concept that we're trying to relate. And once you've covered over, then the person could understand the nimshal, the analogy. The Alter Rebbe says in the Torah Or from last week, the Alter Rebbe says an example that Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of all men, would say 3,000 parables, 3,000 mishalim, examples. So he asks a simple question. It doesn't seem to be such a big innovation to be able to say 3,000 examples. So most people can give maybe 2 or 5 or 10 examples or something, and he can give a little more. Does that really explain the intensity and the what's the word I'm looking for? The greatness of Shlomo's wisdom? Not necessarily. See, Alter Rebbe explains in that Maamar about what really Shlomo HaMelech's wisdom was. It wasn't just that Shlomo was able to give many different types of examples, but each example was a level. Vayidaber Shlomo shloshet alafim mashal. Shlomo would say 3,000 examples. It was 3,000 levels. He was so smart that he was able to bring down the concept 3,000 levels. So he was able to organize in his mind like a master chess player ahead. What's going to be if I do this, and how is the other person going to counter his moves on many different levels? If I do here, what are going to be several levels ahead? And what happens does this, and based on the many calculations, he makes his next move. So Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, was so wise that he was able to set in his mind clearly 3,000 levels to bring down a very, very deep concept that a person on a much, much lower level than him should be able to understand and to receive at least the most external point of the message that he's trying to relay. So this is the idea of a mashal, especially when it comes to a mashal, an example in Torah, how much more so that it's much more exact and calculated. It's not just an example out of the box or out of the hat, but it's a calculated example that can help us understand a much deeper level than what we would be able to understand without the example. Omnam al yidei zeh yitfos b'hanimshal v'yavenoto. It's worth it to give this example or many examples. You might tell me, you might argue, it's not worth it. You're covering over the essence of what's going on in his mind. So why would you cover it over? We want the real thing. The answer is that it's worth it. Because without the example, you'll never be able to reach the essence. Because since a real example, a real metaphor can really be focused and tailored to this specific concept which the mashpia is trying to relate to the receiver. Therefore, that's the best way to enable the receiver to understand the depth of the intense concept. The Rebbe Rashab continues, this is what our sages teach us. La'olam yeshaneh adam letalmido b'derech ktsara. A person should always teach their student in a quote-unquote short way. V'hainu, what does that mean, ktsara? Doesn't mean you should just quickly teach them something and then move on. We don't want to teach short. We want to give the student the entire concept. So the explanation is that this is the idea. We don't want that the student should get lost in the depth and the breadth of the intensity of the concept. You have to find a short path, a short way. And this short way, you could speak for longer than usual, but at least don't reveal the entire essence, because if so, you'll just lose the student. So what's the point? What have we gained? Almost nothing. Hainu ha'omek orach v'rochav shelo ki'im ma shelo fi erech ha'mekabel u'megalelo bidvarim ktsarim. He should reveal to him in small snippets, in small concepts, details. Mikol makom, nevertheless, Masha katuv sheyilmad letalmido b'derech ktsara eina kavana shlo yeh bezeh pnimiyut v'atzmiyut sichlo. When Chazal teach us that you have to teach your student in a short way, it doesn't mean to negate the depth and the most inner part of the seichel. We want to give the student everything. If you want to hide the essence of the seichel, then you're not giving him that seichel. You're giving him another idea, another concept. What is the intention? What's the objective? That the essence of the seichel, of the intellect that he wants to relate, should teach him in a short way. That means shebehelim yesh b'hashpa'a kol omek sichlo v'chochmato b'maskalahu. That this is like a cloth And all of the depth of the intensity of the sechel is wrapped up inside this mashal, inside this metaphor. So for example, if someone walks out in the winter and it's snowing, a terrible snowstorm, and he's bundled up and he even has a mask, would you say, and his name is Moshe, would you say that's not Moshe? It's a huge snowsuit that's walking in the street? Obviously not. Obviously it is Moshe. It's just that Moshe, if Moshe was to go out dressed in a regular way, he wouldn't be able to take, may not be able to take the great level of frost. But when he goes out in a snowsuit, then he's able to be protected. So you have the Moshe, you have his essence, you have his body, you have his neshama, you have his basic clothes. That's Moshe. But this Moshe is dressed in a snowsuit in order they should be able to walk through the 3 feet of snow and to climb up the mountains and make a few snowmen. So on one hand, you have the idea of concealment, condensing. But on the other hand, you have the thing itself. That's the punchline. When the teacher is trying to give over a concept and he gives a metaphor, the metaphor is only a cloth, is only a wrapping, is only a peel for the fruit, in order that you should be able to appreciate the fruit itself. So when you have the fruit, the orange, for example, you have the peel. Would anyone in their right mind say you only have a peel? Because if you give me the fruit itself, then it's gonna get dry and it's gonna become moldy. So the peel protects the fruit. It's definitely more than that. In addition to the peel, you have the fruit itself as well. And that's something which is very important for us to understand in order to appreciate what is the idea of Havaya and Elokim. Elokim is not just concealing. Elokim, when we have Bereshit bara Elokim in the world, we have Hashem himself. It's just a package. When we say that Hashem does miracles, and then there's nature, quote unquote, that's Hashem. Hashem is the nature. Elokim is the same numerical value as Hateva. Hateva means the nature. That means that Hashem acts through the nature. So sometimes Hashem does miracles, and when Hashem does miracles, you sort of see Hashem in a much greater way, in a clearer, in a more revealed way. And when Hashem acts through nature, we see Hashem perhaps a little less. But that's Hashem. It's just a package, a wrapper. The wrapping that Hashem wraps around the godly spark. It's all the same. Havaya and Elokim are all the same. It's just a question of how you present it. You can present the quote-unquote thing itself without any, without any wrapping, without any wrapper, and then the person might be overwhelmed by the intensity of the revelation. So therefore, Hashem, in his infinite knowledge, decided that the best way to give us spirituality is through a special package. In each way, in each scenario, Hashem decides how to package it. Thank you very much for joining us. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue over the next couple of days this amazing concept with more analogies and more explanations. And tonight, of course, 7:30, a special lecture with Rabbi Aaron Schmidt, a marriage counselor and editor, and also has a column in the weekly Jewish, very popular weekly newsletter. And we look forward to seeing you later on tonight and every day, and of course Friday for Kabbalah Cafe. Toda Rabah. Thank you very much.